Season 3, what can people look forward to?
The end. It's going to be, I'd say, it's easily our most ambitious season, and it's the season that I think we kind of finally realised the scope that the show could reach. There's sequences in it that we've never attempted before, battle sequences and action sequences, while at the same time kind of plumbing deeper into the characters. So every main lead gets an arc, gets a resolution, gets an end to their story. So yeah, I think it's a satisfying conclusion.
Is that something you anticipated when you heard Leonardo da Vinci, that you were going to end up with battle scenes? And
No, I had no idea. Well, I mean, I knew because David was involved that it was going to be a slightly different beast to the ones previously, but I didn't expect that I'd have to sort of lose, 30 pounds in weight and get a six-pack and learn to fight two-handed with swords. But I'm glad I did. There are skill sets I'll never lose, I hope.
And how has season 3 felt different in a way than the first 2 seasons?
I think because we had an external showrunner come in, the exciting thing about having someone like that come in from the outside is that when you're that deep in the show, like we were for 2 years, you kind of get entrenched in it and you can miss when things aren't quite working or things aren't quite clicking. And fresh eyes coming in, being able to be completely objective and saying, I love the show, but this is where I think it's falling down, or this is where it could be improved. It made for a far more deeper and richer show. He's kind of plumbed the characters a lot deeper, and it's a lot more nuanced, and I think it's the show we always wanted it to be. Finally, we got there before the end.
Do you feel like was it a surprise when you found out that the 3rd season was going to be the last season?
I don't know if it was a surprise. I think we knew, certainly as the scripts were coming, it was that feeling of, we're coming to a natural end here. We're coming to a conclusion of all the characters. We're finding a way that this could be the end. Whether it will be or not, we don't know, but it certainly feels like this would be a natural point to end the story. And then when the decision was made to do that, we then got the chance to go back and make sure that all that stuff was a lot more solidified, so the fans wouldn't be left wanting at the end.
You think they'll feel satisfied?
I mean, it depends how much they like it. Like, if they really love it, they won't. They'll just be pissed off whatever we do. But I think it's certainly, as far as I've had enough shows pulled out from under me at the last minute and been like, that's it, and it won't feel like that, which I'm proud of.
What was the most challenging part of filming this kind of a show on this scale? Because obviously the production value is huge and it's so intricate. Was there anything that was particularly challenging about that?
I mean, the hours are always hard, but also, like you say, it's finding time, particularly on heavy action episodes, finding the time in your lunch break or at the end of the day to practice what you're going to do tomorrow on top of all your lines. That stuff can completely wipe you out, and you realise that this is a fight sequence from another episode, and you've got a stuntman looking at you going, I don't know what you're doing. You're going to stab me, aren't you? And that stuff, when you've done it you're in 5 months deep, and you realise you don't know if you're killing a Turk from episode 2 or killing a Turk from episode 8, can kind of throw you.
And obviously, most people are familiar with Leonardo da Vinci on some level. Mm-hmm. Was there anything you were surprised that you learned about him that you hadn't known before, or you thought to yourself, did he really invent that?
I mean, I didn't know half his inventions, and we've managed to get through a great deal of them through the three seasons, and even in the 3rd season, the ones he hasn't got to, other people have got to. But the most interesting thing, I say this a lot because it's kind of amazing, is he used to dig up dead bodies, illegally grave rob, and then cut them in half through the middle for a cross section, and then fill them with candle wax so they wouldn't deflate in order to sketch them. That's not the image I had in my mind. I just had this kind of big grey bearded man sat quietly in the countryside painting beautiful pictures. I didn't quite realise he was stealing into cemeteries in the middle of the night and pumping wax into people's lungs.
Well, and that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier today, also this idea that people have this image of him and may not know the scope of what he invented and kind of the implications of his genius. Is that something in season 3 that he continues to struggle with, the desire to invent, but then having to face the consequences of how those inventions are used?
That's exactly it. For the first 2 years, he's been very laissez-faire as far as his attitude towards his own mind is concerned. And he's not cared about the consequences, particularly not just the consequences of what his designs might mean, but how his actions reflect on his friends. And this season, his kind of careless attitude towards that will come back and get him and really bite him in the ass. And it's going to be the same for a lot of the characters. Riario, Lucretia, they've all left behind a trail of collateral damage in their wake, and they're all going to have to face up to their pasts in order to step clearly into their futures. But particularly for Leonardo, yeah, his actions cause everything. And he's not going to be able to be quite so... Who cares about it all, because he's going to be faced with a lot of death and destruction as a result.
And what kind of new relationships does he have this season?
Well, there are a few new characters, and there are a re-examination of old relationships. So he's going to have to get into bed, not literally, fortunately, for both me and James Faulkner, with the Pope. And he's also going to discover... I don't know how much I can say about that, but there is a new character who has a far greater link to him than he even knew existed. So we are going to get a chance to explore him in comparison to other people that we haven't met before, and also reevaluate those relationships with the present people, the current people.
What about his relationship with his mother?
Well, he's about to shoot her in the face. So... that's the decision he has to make in literally the first 2 minutes of the show. He has to make that decision, what to do about his mother. And that decision is what will cause ripple upon ripple upon ripple right down through the season. But just because of his decision, whichever decision he makes, it won't necessarily be the end of their relationship, put it that way.
And in looking for what could have been in the future for a season 4, is there some sort of storyline for Leonardo that you would have liked to explore if you had the chance?
I was always fascinated by The Last Supper and his relationship with Michelangelo. That would have been something, because they hated each other. And that would have been a really interest to bring in another incredibly talented flavour of the month painter into Florence to just kind of put the cat among the pigeons and see how he responded to that. I would have loved to have explored that. We kind of hinted at a bit of Botticelli rivalry in the first season, but that never went anywhere necessarily. So the Michelangelo stuff would have been interesting.
Well, it's definitely interesting that, he is associated so closely with religion, and yet he's had a very kind of detached relationship with religion on the show.
Certainly on the show, and in his early life. By the end of his life, he didn't. His final words were something along the lines of, "I've offended God and mankind by not achieving enough," which is insane in retrospect. So I think he found religion towards the end of his life, but certainly he had a very iconoclastic approach towards religion when he was younger.
And how do you feel about all of the episodes getting released at once?
I think it's great. It depends, because I think it's great if you're in America. I think the advent of social media is a scary thing for fans outside of the country who are going to... there are big shocks this season, and I hope they don't sneak out into Estonia before the Estonians have had a chance to see it, But it's... I love the idea of binge watching, and particularly this season where it's quite a cliffhanger-y season, not the end, but in between episodes, people are going to want to keep watching, and they'll be able to. So I think it's a great experiment for Starz. I'm excited to see how it does.
And is there any particular person who you've had a lot of scenes with that you're really going to miss working with?
I mean, Greg, who plays Zoe, obviously, is one of my best friends in the way. To be honest, Greg, Laura, Blake, Elliot, Eros, Hera. It'd be really, really hard to pick a favourite. We all got on, so it was the best thing about doing the job, to be honest, because when you're squirreled away down in Swansea with only each other for company, it's nice when there isn't a bad apple that you've got to go, "Oh God, I've got to do scenes with Blake today." It was always great, so I'll miss them all.
And having done this kind of big historical drama now, is that something you want to do again?
I don't know if I'm ever going to get a chance to do a show like this again. This is a very special beast, and a period drama that's also a kind of action thing, playing history's greatest mind. I can't see that coming along quickly, but period stuff's always interesting. I'm open.
Excellent. Well, and do you have a message for the fans for what they can look forward to, and just kind of...
They can look forward to our best season, the season that will pay them back for their investment, and thanks for watching.